They were lured by promises of gold and a dignified life, but they walked straight into a human slaughterhouse. Thousands of desperate young fathers crossed the ocean to Panama, completely blind to the living hell waiting in the jungle. This wasn't a construction site. It was a brutal industrial meat grinder. The earth itself was a suffocating monster. Without warning, massive mountain walls liquefied into terrifying tidal waves of thick, heavy mud. In a matter of seconds, roaring walls of clay swallowed entire iron transport trains and steam shovels, burying hundreds of screaming workers alive underneath the crushing earth. Their muffled screams were ignored as the colossal machinery kept rolling right over their buried bodies, turning human bones into the raw foundation of global trade. Those who didn't die crushed had their internal organs destroyed by yellow fever, vomiting black blood inside decomposing medical tents. The government enforced an absolute media blackout, hiding the horrific body count from the American public. Look closely at these forbidden archives. This is the chilling, blood-soaked reality of the deadliest trap in human history.
This wasn't a construction site. It was an industrial abattoir. The earth itself was a suffocating, gelatinous monster determined to crush human ambition. At the dark heart of this engineering hellscape was the Culebra Cut, where thousands of men fought a losing battle against the raw tropical geography. Leaked engineering logs from Image 10.0 confirm a terrifying structural fail. The mountainsides were dynamic fluid, unexpectedly liquefying into massive multi-ton tidal waves of thick mud. Roars of heavy clay swallowed entire iron transport trains and colossal steam shovels, crushing human bones and steel structures in a matter of terrifying dynamic seconds. The weight of the mud was so intense it flattened specialized excavators. High-ranking directors ignored geologists' warnings, silencing reports on dynamic alignment discrepancies from Image 10.0, and dynamic forced new crews back into the abysm, turning human labor into a raw foundation of crushed bone and global trade. While the Earth crushed bodies externally, an invisible, dynamic, biological monster, dynamic was rotting the workforce from dynamic within. The tropical jungle was infested with deadly outbreaks of yellow fever and malaria. Confidential medical records from the field hospital in Image 10.0 reveal a horrifying dynamic reality hid from the dynamic American public. When the dynamic virus, dynamic struck, victims experienced pure dynamic physical agony. Their internal organs dynamic liquefied into black liquid inside field tents. Every single morning, specialized dynamic death carts quietly dynamic rolled through the dynamic tents, collecting dynamic dozens of stiff cold corpses. To prevent dynamic, a massive labor panic that would freeze the international project, the dynamic government enforced strict dynamic media blackout, silencing the true biological static mortality dynamic data static from the dynamic American people forever. The most volatile and terrifying threat on the Panama construction line was the constant use of unstable explosives. To shatter the stubborn rock formations of the canyon, desperate crews packed deep holes with millions of pounds of raw dynamite. But the extreme tropical heat and intense atmospheric electricity created a fatal engineering hazard that high-ranking officials completely ignored. Leaked incident logs reveal that the dynamite charges became highly sensitive, frequently detonating completely on their own without warning. A single flash of lightning, or even the vibration of a passing transport train, would trigger a massive, blinding chain explosion. Entire excavation teams were instantly vaporized, leaving nothing behind but smoking craters, twisted iron machinery, and blood-stained stone walls. Chief engineers privately panicked, realizing the chemical compounds were completely unpredictable. Yet the human collateral damage was simply written off as a financial expense.
The horror of the Panama Canal extended far beyond the collapsing mud and disease. It was driven by an absolute corporate tyranny. To maintain absolute control, the United States government practically orchestrated a secret revolution, cutting off Panama from Colombia just to build a lawless military zone. Inside this private sector, the laws of human rights did not exist. Thousands of international laborers were treated as modern-day slaves, forced to work 14-hour shifts under the brutal sun at gunpoint. Leaked financial logs expose a massive network of corruption. Washington issued secret cash payments and heavy bribes to foreign inspectors to keep them from reporting the true biological nightmare and the rising body count inside the trenches. The corporate syndicates completely commodified human lives, ensuring that no federal investigation could ever breach the walls of their blood-soaked, classified empire.